PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. It shouldn't be past. It should be labeled present traumatic stress disorder. Why? Because we are from birth put into a state of constant stress in the present. That's how everything has been set up here. That stress is traumatic, and it creates many different disorders. Physical and psychological disorders due to stress. Folk deal with stress all the time, talk about it all the time, talk about how they're stressed out, talk about how they deal with stress. Don't understand the stress or where it's coming from, though. Don't get the source. That's the issue. And that's because we've all been put into this state of very much in the present traumatic state of stressful disorder and disorders. Consider at birth your body as a baby being that small. Do you think it would be stressful to a small body to be injected with different metals and chemicals, among other things, aborted fetal cells, different tissues from different diseased or not animals of different species? For the body, that small body and brain and energy, that small life energy that powers that little being, think that would be stressful? Yep. And that's on purpose. Our bodies, being natural living things, aren't meant to process all that unnatural stuff. They're not. That is known. That's why that stuff is pushed so heavily. And that's why it is only pushed with belief. And that's why it's followed, due to belief. Because folks just plain don't know better. Why? In this constant state of stress, they have disorders in memory, disorders in personality, disorders in their health that manifest, all kinds of different disorders. Disorders to their attention, as in attention deficit disorder, in which I was diagnosed with, among other things, in my past, during my time of stressful disorders upon disorders. Now I can explain them fully, and I get how they manifested. I get how they're manifested in others, and it's really very simple once you know truth, once you truly know truth. Not just the teaching of what's been taught, exoterically or esoterically. You can run those circles and loops as much as you want for lifetime after lifetime and never stand in the center of truth. What truth? Well, that's the question, isn't it? Is there an absolute truth? Can there be absolute yes or no truth here? Because what's taught is that even things such as morals are relative and are not absolute. What's right here isn't right there. What's right for me isn't right for you. What you're doing is wrong because I said so, yet I will do it. The truth is, that's bullshit. The truth is, the absolute truth of, let me stop with the absolute stuff, because I don't know, because who am I to say, except I can only say what I do know for me to be true. And there are some things like this. Authority, man-made authority, whether due to religion or government, state, local, federal, doesn't matter the ideology or name you want to attach to it, who said it, who thought it up, who supports it, what massive amount of folk support it. It's made up by man. Therefore, that's not the truth of nature when it comes to things like law and authority. Think of that same little baby being born into this world. Well, that baby is not born into this world with any sort of title or authority over any other baby or any other adult. Period. None of us are. Though we're made to think otherwise as we're indoctrinated into the education system and we start to learn all these things about these systems of control and this person and that person who's in charge of this and that. And what? Monarchs? You say there's kings and queens and what, they even would cut people's heads off for not doing what they said? That's traumatic, isn't it? What a traumatic thing to teach a child. What about the dinosaurs? How about that there's these vast giant reptilian beings that used to walk this place like we do now, except they were all decimated and wiped out by some huge catastrophe. And we'll even show you the fake bones for it. Show you the skeletons, because that way, why? Because that way you can get a nice physical, in the present moment visualization of death. Wink, wink. Isn't that traumatic? Well, yes, it is when it's thought of and conceptualized and visualized by the conscious of the individual in taking that information, especially if they're going to take what's coming to them from the so-called authority figure as truth. When it's not truth, it's merely belief. It's a belief that's been taught by their predecessor and their predecessor and their predecessor, who heard it from someone else, who all their friends talk about in their little circles. It's nonsense. All of this traumatic stress is taught and repeated and programmed into us through belief. That's it. It's the simple belief that we are not more than what we're told. It's that belief. It's that belief that someone else is more than what we are. It's that belief. That's not truth. Truth is, we are all born into here as equals, in potentiality as sentient beings, thinking, feeling, spiritual sentient beings in the forms we're in. All equal. It's not this group, that group, the other. Of course, there are differences and variations in nature, because nature would be boring without it. Problem comes when language comes into play and things are explained and misexplained, or explained in twisted ways with bits of truth hidden here and there and everywhere throughout. When it's only belief being taught and it's not truth. It's not the truth of creation. It's not the truth of natural law. It's not the truth that we are all equal. It's the truth that all of these things that are taught and all these systems of control are only systems of control due to the belief that we've been taught to have in them. And because we were made dependent on them. We grew up in this system as it was all normalized, this constant 24/7 cycle of stress coming from every angle. Every electromagnetic wave pulsing in the ether is just full of this negative programming, just waiting to be keyed into and picked up on and consumed by the masses who continue, as I did once, to be hypnotized and mesmerized by the immoral, dark, evil, layered upon layered system of mind control that has put us all into this state we're in, where We're divided into all these different states that then go fight against other states because our state said so. And why? It's because folks are in that state of constant stress and belief and dependency on fake authority to tell them which way to go, what to do, what to think. Waiting for that so-called authority to present sides to pick, because you got to pick a side. I need something. Please give me something to pick. What can I do? Oh, thank you, authority, for offering me sides to this so now I can pick a side and get on board. Yeah, get on board. Get on board their maritime ship of bullshit. Go right ahead. Set sail into the sea of deception. I've been there. I've been there. I have the, I almost said birth, the whole maritime thing. Let me say instead, I have the slave certificate to prove it. Well, I did. I lit it on fire. But you know, it's on record somewhere. It's on file somewhere with somebody, whatever. I don't care. So, it's all nonsense is what it is. Here's a truth. Truth is, don't let me even say, I won't even say that. Truth is, a lot of folk don't even know what rights are, what their rights are. Folk in the truth community, folks in the awakened, woke community, don't even know what rights are, because they sit there and they will start to, they'll tell you stuff about the Bill of Rights and the freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of this, freedom of that. Why? Because someone else said so, because it's written down. See the trap? Instead of just knowing, for me, for instance, that it is my right to live my life experience unimpeded by and unmolested by others. Others of my capacity to think, know, and feel. Human beings, so to speak. I say that because I realize fully that animals out there could indeed attack. Insects can indeed bite. I can indeed be harmed by them, and that happens, and that's nature, and that's their way because that's their nature. I also know now that that is not our nature. Our, as in human beings, it is not our nature. We were taught that that is our nature, that it is a shared nature with the other animals to keep us in that lower state of being. Is exactly what it was. And that's exactly how I was tricked into thinking I was, as the Satanic Bible says, man is, represented as just another animal, no better, no worse than any other animal, or whatever it says, I can't remember. But yeah, I looked deep into all that stuff back in the day when I was tricked and I was a clown. I fell right into that. It was a whole nother, just another belief system of belief of nonsense. And it take you down whatever dark path of belief it is. It doesn't matter if it has a shiny label on it or a dark label on it. If it's belief, it's not yours. It's not your knowing. It's not your truth. It's someone else's stuff is what it is. And that's what the problem is. Folk will incessantly talk very intellectually now, very in depth now, on different nonsensical topics of belief and control of the control system, about the control structure, because they don't yet see the whole thing as a control structure dependency. Money is the best example to me. Money. Everything comes down to how much is it? How much is that? This and that. Well, what if the fake ass dollar fails? Well, then what? Well, then you need gold, silver, this earth. Well, why? See, there's a problem. It's another money system, an exchange of energy and currency in a form that's, see, if we are all on the same page, consciously, in consciousness, if all the individuals out there would take the time in their own personal energy and responsibility to develop their own consciousness of mind to an expansive viewpoint, and the consciousness of their heart and their feeling, and expand it, they would know these things, because they would eventually stand in a center point of truth. Truth of the Creator, for the Creator, Mother, Father, Creator, God, nature, however you want to label it. The thing is once you stand there and you see it like that, you really see it and you feel it. Natural law type of thing. You see it, feel it, live it, breathe it, and start to wield it in words of truth. From that standing on the center point of truth, that's how you can talk outwardly to all the angles and aspects of esoteric, exoteric knowledge, and so on and so forth. Because you can see all the labels and all the pictures and masks and symbols, and you can see it all. Because nature doesn't put all these labels on things. The Creator doesn't put all these labels on things, right? We do. We, with our language, our ability, and free will. Free will, when not under mind control anyway, which is a weird thing for me, is not realizing that for so long. For the majority of my life, 39 years, I was indeed under mind control. And I was not living fully, to the fullest, to my fullest potential as a living being. Because my consciousness was so suppressed. And so narrow my point of view on reality. And that came with all of the disorders that I developed within me during the course of my life experience. Starting off at birth on. And because I didn't know fully what was going on energetically, I didn't know myself. I didn't know myself at all. And in that, I couldn't know others fully either. So I couldn't fully appreciate that others thought, and they felt, and they perceived, and they lived, and they dreamt, and they did everything just as I did. Knowing that now, as I look back, as I'm out of that control of suppressed consciousness and suppressed cut-off feeling, now that I can fully know that and stand in truth, the truth of natural law, the truth of do no harm, the truth of know thyself, the truth of cause and effect. The truth of energy itself, really. My energy, my thoughts, my feelings, how I work. It makes everything so glaringly obvious, when before it was so occulted, so hidden from my vision. And I don't just mean the vision from my eyeballs. I mean my consciousness. Yet it was there, looking back the whole time. It was all there the whole time for me to see, because I was taking it in constantly. Especially the mind control flashing of negative crap, and then really knowing now what I was looking at, and knowing what I see now and what I look at. It is such an absolute nonsensical mess of dark Luciferian priest class mind, body, spirit control going on, that's built this whole entire nonsense based off of words among the technology. Now the technology that's being used and put out and amped up and ramped up and rolled out faster and faster is exacerbate the problem would be an understatement, I guess, when you consider the kill grid that's being put in. But not like there's not already one set up anyway, or multiple layered kill grids that we're all underneath anyway. Why? Well, because someone has a certain job to do in some department somewhere, and so do all their buddies, and then someone else in some other department somewhere and all their other buddies. And somewhere in some factory somewhere, someone has a job to make something to sell. And then someone somewhere else has this job to, get weapons and then, go attack this folk or that folk, go destroy this, go destroy that. Why? Well, because they need a paycheck, need money. Why? Because you're supposed to be dependent. You're not supposed to just be able to, know that you can just naturally eat, plant material like this body was designed to do and consume and intake. No, you get taught backwards. So you want to ravenously run around, consume meat and other sentient beings, dead life. And then your body's supposed to try and somehow process that dark ass energy. And then along with all the other toxins being thrown in on top of it, I mean, what the fuck do you expect? You get the mess of immorality and slavery that you see today. Is what I can see now, which is what, again, so weird, because it seemed like regular normal life back, coming up through school. What do I want to be when I grow up? And I'm going to be this, and I'm going to have a career, and I have a career. No, it's all normal. No. Furthest from normality, it turns out that's why it's so hard to get across to others. Because once you fully come out of that, and you don't have the Stockholm syndrome of loving your captors, whoever that might be, whoever you're slaving your energy for to then affect others in some negative way. It doesn't matter who the master is. Fact is, it's enslavement that's causing enslavement and harm to others. So, yeah, it's not right. So there's an absolute truth. You do not have the right to cause those actions, to do those jobs, to get money and currency in such a way as to where it takes you going out and causing harm. You don't have that right. I don't have that right. I didn't have that right. Yeah, I did it. I joined the military. I got used to go out and cause harm to others. And it's a shame. And that crushed me to my soul when I really saw it for what it was, and saw everything for what it was and how it was all set up. And how we were all used against each other all along. From way before I was born here. Don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about like I just came across some new thing or some shit. Except the truth to me a couple and a half years ago or so was a very new thing. To finally know that there was indeed an absolute truth. That do no harm had such a deeper, more profound meaning than I ever knew. And that know myself, I hadn't even scratched the surface. Until I did, or was forced to start to do the individual inner work, figure out my reality, figure out how my body functions, how my mind functions, how my thoughts function, feelings. Figure it out, start getting right in alignment, the moral compass. Line it up with nature. Because I realized before, the way I was taught with all these beliefs I had about this concept and that it's okay to go do this or that to control this or that or this or consume this animal or that animal, or to use life in some certain way only because it's this job, it's that job, it's just how things are, that's just how things go. Nope. All the beliefs stress you out. The way everything's set up stresses you out. Everything's set up in this grid pattern. Everyone's set up in boxes and cubes and trapped in these different places and these little tiny narrow walks of life or aspects of life without ever really getting a bigger, broader overview of their own experience, their own nature, their own energy, and how it's constantly acting and interacting with them and with their environment. Don't get a chance to get it because there's too many unnatural program beliefs being played out and run day in, day out on a constant, continuous basis based off of whatever belief. Is it going to church every Sunday? Well, that's an appointment you got to make every Sunday due to a belief. I'm talking about if you actually got to go out, you got to go somewhere for your spirituality. For that, I'm not talking about showing due respect and reverence to creation, the mother, father, creator, the creator, creation, creation within to creation without, that kind of thing. I'm saying if you got to go somewhere out there like an appointment, like it's a task you have to do, and you know, that can cause stress. What else causes stress? The belief that you have to go to this ridiculous public education indoctrination program. That's stressful because who wants to go to that? I know when I was a kid, I didn't want to go to school. I'd have some fun for part of the year and certain parts where I would learn some things that were interesting. Other times it was just nonsense. I couldn't wait to get out of there. I knew what I was being taught would not give me what I needed later in life for some reason. Some of the stuff, yes. A lot of the stuff, no. I was a fool. I was a fool trapped in my own mind and my own what I thought was intelligence and intellect that was just really others' beliefs and things, as I did the same thing and would turn to authority, you know, for this or that answer, you know, or take orders, follow orders, give orders while following orders. You know, that whole dynamic of, you know, what's worse, the order giver, the order follower, when harm is being done. You know what? It doesn't matter to me. It does matter. It's the person taking the action. Of course, like the actions I took, I take full responsibility for it. Thing is, to me, it's anyone that falls under those belief systems are really, at this point, probably equally, a bit equally responsible in the share of blame to go around, so to speak, for all the enslavement going on. Just by believing that that's a real thing and that folks should go, yeah, should join that group and then should go fight that group because you guys think it's a good idea. I'm with you. Let's go fight that group. No. Everyone's wrong. And the thing about that kind of thing is, like I've said before, I'm pretty sure the folk that set up those groups to go out and do the fighting, of course, they're echelons above reality, so to speak, of that reality, because they've set up all the different sides. It's not just two sides, it's multiple sides of things. It's ridiculous. It really is. So then, of course, living in that state of narrow perception with all these different things going on around you that you don't know anything about, maybe you can't. I know how that is. I remember how that was to be around folk that would talk about something that was so out of my realm or my lane, so to speak, to use a military term, that I wouldn't want to hear it. I wouldn't be able to focus fully sometimes, you know, depending on whatever state of mind I was in, because it didn't line up nice and neatly with my reality, so I wouldn't want to hear it. Wouldn't want to intake it. I wouldn't be open-minded enough to give things a chance sometimes. And that's what everything really is designed to do, that, you know, the drugs, the alcohol, the toxins, the programming, the TV, the constant news lies, the constant studies on this and that, lies, you know, to push this or that narrative, or, you know, get people fired up on this thing or that thing or the other thing, when a lot of it is still just totally made up nonsense. So all these, you got so many of these folk in this so-called truth community that spend so much time analyzing in others as if as if these things are true, and then debating these different beliefs, and then mixing in their own belief with it while sitting there trying to say they're getting to the truth of something. Well, here's the thing. If you're arguing a concept, or you're talking about a concept of belief that you cannot know fully for yourself, because you can only go off of what you've been told, because the thing already happened, or someone who already said it, is dead, or it's not organic to you, only something you took from somewhere. Well, if you sit there and you're constantly regurgitating that and using that as the basis of your truth, it's not your truth. It's someone else's belief that you're masquerading with as truth, and trying to get to the bottom of something where a lot of times is set up in a totally nonsensical fashion, to where those that know will look at the topic and see what you're talking about and go, "You're a fool. We set that whole thing up. That's not even a thing you're arguing about." What are some examples possibly? Well, the Darwin's theory that we evolved from monkeys, of course. Newton's theory of gravity, of course. Einstein's theory of relativity, of course. Pick any bit of theoretical nonsense. How about the whole fractioning of time into dimensions and all of that type of stuff? How about that? What if that is just an absolutely made up nonsensical concept to fit with the technomancer's view of reality, as a way of explaining some natural phenomenon or exchange of energy, or how energy works here, just in yet a different way? Because why? Well, obviously the atomic theory of the universe is already melted as long ago, except us poor folks, us here in the US, we hadn't been taught anything about that in the public school system, have we? No. It's all this atomic theory of balls bashing around in the cosmos and things crashing and exploding. Well, you also got it lined up to go right with the electric universe theory, because now we're ready to roll that out, while still using the same broken cosmology being presented, just calling it the electric universe. Why? Because it's another way to set up another false cosmology, keep people arguing. People are still arguing about the other ones, right? So all they're doing is adding more layers of arguments. All it is deception on top of deception on top of deception on top of deception. As you get rid of one or the other, they already got a few more built up on top. So folk will continue to argue nice and intellectually with their big words and terms, and their knowing of this person said this and that, circa whatever year and date. Dielectromagnetic toroidal fields of energy. All the time, always on, everywhere, layered upon layer upon layer, all within each other, all around each other, all resonating, all at once. That's the energy we live in. That's this place. That's this plane. It's in the middle of that energy is where we stand in physicality. Again, not flashing hand gestures and symbols. Not with some ill meaning or intent or hidden meaning or this or that or whatever. I'm not that. I am not one of those. I am not a peddler of snake oil. I am not a purveyor of belief. To me, I'm only a regular, simple man who started to look for truth and found it. That's it. And then trying to share it. Thing is, it's frustrating. Here's why it's frustrating. It's frustrating because I spent 39 years unaware of life and the nature of life, my own. I didn't know my own nature. I couldn't perceive my own nature or fully perceive nature and life around me. I did not live fully because I could not perceive fully. I could not feel fully. I was locked into different systems of belief and under literal mind control due to what I was taught. As was, to me, everyone else I've ever met. And likely their parents and their parents and their parents. Unless, so I know others have seen this way before me, and others have not been raised and indoctrinated in the same way I was. I know plenty. Because I know the minstrels of this reality, these bards, these magicians, sorcerers, with their words and their acting and their portrayal of information to those that they want to lead / control. I know their consciousness is expanded for them to be able to see things the way they see things, and for the way they can lie. Easily it comes to them, the lies, except you can see easily once you can see and hear. They're repeated. They're coming from beliefs. They're coming from what they've been told. They're all in support of this system or that system of enslavement. It doesn't matter what it is. You see it all because it's all the same once you can see it. That's what keeps folk from seeing it, from feeling it, because it's that big. And who wants to accept that fully? Seems to me very few. Very few want to fully accept what's happening here. What has happened to all of us. And what we, as a group, are trying to climb out of and pull each other up out of. Some of us are. And there's others. There's others where either knowingly or unknowingly are keeping people pulled down this or that or other trail of belief. And they're reinforcing it and reinforcing it with more and more and more truth they uncover. Hidden truth about this or that or the other. Let me give you my interpretation on this belief because I believe it and this all makes sense and this and that. Stop. Please. You're speaking of, it's not a place of knowing. The words aren't coming from a place of organic knowing due to your own wisdom. They are coming from mind that is perceiving and then regurgitating. If that information isn't taken in, fully internalized and felt for truth and condensed and distilled to wisdom, and the other discarded, well, then you're not speaking organic truth based on those words that you have taken in. You may have taken in those words, but you're taking them just and presenting them just as they're presented as just another reinforcement of the same belief, except adding your own spin of this or that, which might be also nonsense. That's what I mean. The belief traps are endless. They are endless and they are infinite. You can find these belief traps anywhere and everywhere you look. And once you start to really look, so to speak, at what you think, you'll find these beliefs over and over and over. Because it was what was taught here, there, last year, 10 years ago. It's what I heard somewhere sometime. This is what I know is true because this is what I grew up learning. Did you grow up learning truth? Or did you grow up learning simply a belief? Because that's what most folk are basing their reality on. That's why most folk thinks morals are relative. That moral right isn't just moral right, period. Moral wrong isn't just moral wrong, period. To cause harm to another sentient life here, any life, is wrong, period. That's the truth of natural law. Unless you are in active defense of your own life at the time because it is being physically attacked, then that's different. Or, see, now we're starting to get to the ors or the buts, because the problem is there's so much darkness set up. How do you root out those aberrants of society that have set up all these systems that will perpetuate them to the day they die? Because they don't want to say, yeah, of course we're all equal. We just didn't want to let you know. We were just hoping you folk would continue to believe that, certain ones of us just owned everything and that you had to scrape and, and work at doing this and that, whatever we told you to do to try and get somewhere you'd never get to. We're just hoping you wouldn't catch on. No, they're not going to just, you know what I'm saying? So how do you get rid of them? I don't know. I say you don't go out and you cause all this violence, though. I say everybody that's following their orders simply says, hey, you know what? If you want to destroy society, if you want to go start this war, if you want to go fight all these other folk, you go do it. I won't do it because it's not right. It's not morally right. It's not correct behavior for me to participate in. What's so messed up is I feel so hypocritical now saying that because I participated in that. The thing is, I know that now that I know that, and I felt the depth of that crushing depth of being fooled so deeply and being the fool throughout so much of my life, that it is my absolute, now I'll say for me, responsibility to say that stuff. And to try and get through to others that are still in those same systems. Whatever system you're in, whatever flag you're fighting for or under, whatever cause you're fighting for or against, if you're fighting because someone told you to fight. Question it. Question why. Why is this happening? Is this right? Is this in line with nature? Is this in line with do no harm? Is this in line with every life here should be able to experience their life experience? Should be able to get food, water, shelter, spirituality in this experience, not at the expense of immense suffering, but should be able to get all those things only through each other, only trying to get those things and sharing their collective ability to make those things happen in nature, in a natural way, in a non-destructive way, together. It's because we were taught backwards and inverted of that in so many different ways and aspects, in so many different narrow divisions of ways of thinking about things and viewing things and perceiving things, and let alone feeling about things. Especially if you're a guy, right? Don't go there. Don't feel, don't cry. It's ridiculous. I know now. Because I know now, after doing the individual work to expand my own consciousness, which took looking at the esoteric type of teaching and occulted so-called knowledge, but looking at enough of it around that circle, not just one label of it, that label of it, that label of it, that religion, this religion, the other thing. No. Simply looking at the teachings of nature that were hidden within all of those esoteric teachings to really, that built the grammar base for the logic and the rhetoric and the whole tapestry of reality to change and consciousness to expand in my mind. It really did. It took effort. It's effort that had I known all along, I definitely would have been doing, because it would have been much more enjoyable for me to develop my own consciousness of all things, not just intelligence, not just knowing more words and definitions to repeat like a parrot. No, to actually gain wisdom by developing my own consciousness and the resonant feeling of my being in spirit and heart. It would have been so much more interesting for me to do, rather than this stupid pursuit, that stupid pursuit, this go mess off here, mess off there, play video games, watch this movie, watch that TV show. The mind-numbing, nonsensical, trauma-inducing slave programming that goes on. Yeah, I mean, I should have done something a little bit more internally for myself all along. So I want to help to tell others that that's a real thing, and it helps immensely to get an expanded consciousness and heart feeling resonance in lockstep with each other, in knowing and in wisdom. That's not tied to a label of this, that, or the other. It's tied to only knowings of things and how things work, or knowing that you don't know how certain things work, and that's okay. It's not to plug those holes in knowing and those holes in wisdom with false belief. That's the point. That's my point. That's a point I was trying to get to, I guess. I'll stop here for now.